Welcome to California Kaburlu. In today's conversation, we will be digging into the real challenges facing our Folsom city, all through the lens of empathy. Let's get into it. Welcome back, Jack.
Thank you.
So, speaking about the real challenges, what do you see as the most pressing issue Folsom City is facing right now?
Great question to start off after July 4th. And also, recently, the city of Folsom has gone through a budget review and a budget approval process. So I would say that the number one challenge that we are facing right now is the fiscal sustainability and also the budget deficit. So both are important challenges that we need to address. Fiscal sustainability has to do with the revenues are falling, or at least in the last few years, what we have noticed is that the sales tax revenues are flattening. And so that is causing a long-term sustainability issues in terms of providing the services and also making sure that we have enough money to serve the needs of the residents. So budget deficit is also causing an issue because this year, for the fiscal year 2025 and 2026, the city manager's budget proposed almost a little over a $3 million deficit on a city budget close to $120 million. So there is now, we have this $3 million of deficit. We have to find a way to either increase the revenues to pay for it or reduce the expenses such a way that we come within our means. What we need right now is a fiscally responsible decisions. And the next few weeks, the City Council will be taking up those decisions to make sure that if we need to make any cuts, those cuts are considered the services and the impact of the services to the residents. And also, more importantly, is to look for any inefficiencies in the operation and find ways to fix those inefficiencies and save some money for the city as well. So that is one challenge, fiscal sustainability. And also, as you can see and visible, is the growth that in terms of the housing that's happening, right? With continued residential and commercial development that's happening. So I believe that the Folsom must prioritize a balanced growth that supports the infrastructure, the schools, traffic management, and also environmental sustainability as important. So in my opinion, the growth should enhance the quality of life for all residents. It should not be a strain, right? Because a lot of times we think about growing, and then we sometimes we accept the fact that the growth comes with the pain. But the thing is, that's a lot of strain and the stress on people as well as the infrastructure. So the proper and responsible growth will make sure that the growth will enhance our quality of life as residents. So the second, as I said, is the smart and sustainable growth is going to be a challenge for us. And third challenge is the public safety and emergency services. As the city grows, that means we need to have people and the resources to support these additional residents in terms of the fire, police, and the emergency services. Again, any city at the local government, public safety is a fundamental to a strong community, right? Because we want the people to feel safe and also they're secure in their neighborhoods and so on. Now, with the budget crisis that we're in, so there is some anxiety about the public safety and emergency services. If at all, it may impact those services. So which is yet to be seen based on the city council decisions that they're going to make. The fourth is infrastructure. And then the resilience of the infrastructure is also important for us. Because one of the questions I always get asked is that, hey, Jack, the Folsom is growing so much. Where is the water? Where are we getting the water? Because we're in California, we always have this drought situation. And then this is the question being always asked. So based on my understanding of the previous reports that I've read from 2007, 2009, there is enough water. Right? But how do we sustain this water comparing to the global warming as well as the growth in climate change and the drought situations? So we need to be much careful about how we can ensure that the water infrastructure is intact, and also water infrastructure is available to do that. So what I mean to say is that we need to take a look at the long-term investment and long-term work in resiliency in terms of water. We have to take a look at that closely, and then be planning, and we may have to work across different regional jurisdictions, and because we are partners with Rancho Cordova, we are partners with the Sacramento County, and it requires that kind of a leadership to do that. I think finally, I'm all about preserving the open spaces and enhancing the quality of life. As I mentioned in my previous podcast, that I moved to Folsom is because of the trails. Right. And to me, also the Folsom city tagline is distinct by nature. That means we are talking about the nature and how the open spaces are the feature or the main feature of the city of Folsom. Again, the city trails, parks, and all these natural ponds that we have, they are the natural beauty. It's part of what makes our city very, very special, right? So preserving these and enhancing the recreational opportunities, not just about aesthetics. It's not about it looks good, right, but also it's all about health, well-being, and then the community connections, right? So we have to make sure that we are preserving those open spaces, and that leads to enhanced quality of life. And with the budget cuts, there is a question on how can we preserve and how can we enhance the quality of life if we are not able to maintain, if we are not able to take care of that. So those are the challenges I see, right? So these are the issues. It's not that something we cannot really solve these issues or we cannot address these challenges, but these issues requires a very much a collaborative, experienced leadership. Right. With my background in managing infrastructure, technology, and budgets, and also my deep involvement in the Folsom community, so I think I'm ready to lead with the very transparency and also the vision, and also take some appropriate action to address these challenges head on, so that it does not have a huge impact on the residents and their quality of life.
That's a powerful breakdown. So, how do you ensure that your approach to these challenges remain people centered?
Good question. Any people-centered approach starts with listening, and also starts with displaying empathy and accessibility to the residents. And my leadership philosophy has always been rooted in emotional intelligence, which basically means understanding not just what decision needs to be made, but also how those decisions impact the people's life. So there are a few things I want to do, right? Number one is always about community engagement. So I also make sure that the community engagement is one of the top priorities that I want to focus on as part of my campaign. I will proactively listen to residents through town halls, neighborhood meetups, and also open office hours if required. And also, I believe good policy comes from the ground up, right? I have a lot of policy experience from my day job, my work, but even there, I believed and I worked such a way that a lot of these policy needs comes from the bottom. And because any policy we enact will have the impact on the residents or wherever we are, right? So by hearing directly from these people affected, so that we can make an effective policy and also a policy that can sustain and for going on. The second thing I want to do, I will do, is the transparent in communication, right?
Sorry, what?
Transparent communication.
Okay.
So what I will keep my community informed and also involved in every decision that we need to make. All right, people deserve to know the facts and also the options they have and the trade-offs. For example, now we're going through some budget crisis issues. Then it is important for the city to let the residents know what it really means and what are the options the city residents can choose to make those decisions. Also, I will use very clear and regular updates through newsletters and social media, for example, and also in-person forums, and which is going to be part of how I want to approach this particular communication. Third thing I want to focus on is the data and the humanity side of things, right? So as an engineer and also working for 3 decades, I've always used data to make my decisions. And a lot of times we call it as the data-based or the data-informed decisions. But anytime we use the data, we don't want to lose sight of the people side, right? Because we can look at 80,000 is a number for city as a population, but there are 80,000 people. So it's not just the numbers we're using here to make the decisions, but also the people, right? So, but what really helps me in this is my background in technology, infrastructure. It helps me analyze these complex problems. And as an engineer, and also my experience in coaching and also leading people that will ensure that there is compassion that drives all the choices that I make and the decisions I make. The fourth item I want to address is the inclusive decision making. Right now that we have the data that I have, and then I considering the human side of the data, then I will seek diverse perspectives, especially from underrepresented groups. Okay. If the decision has to be made for parks and recreation, if there's something needs to be done, then there are underrepresented groups that may be highly impacted than the other represented groups. I will be making sure that we especially focus on those as well. And also, a thriving Folsom really means that everyone sees themselves in the future. Right? If we don't, then it's a problem, right? So what we want to do is that I want to make sure that everyone sees themselves in the future, as well as not just those who has the loudest voice. So many times, we have a saying that, if you're the loudest voice, you get everything, right? Right. But I think there are people with not so loud voice. They also need to be heard and addressed as well. And that's very personal to me. My fifth approach here is service above politics. Okay. Right. So I'm not trying to build a career, and I'm running to serve, because I'm running, and if I win this election, it is not going to benefit me in any way. It's not going to benefit my business. It's not going to benefit my company that I work. Right. And everything is tied to the service, right? As I said previously, the service is a calling for me. So I'm very deeply passionate about this particular service. So every decision as a city council member, every decision I make will be guided by a one key question, which is, how does this improve life for Folsom families, workers, and the seniors who make their home in Folsom? Those are the things I look for. So my approach, again, will be rooted in connection, establishing connection with community engagement, collaboration, which is working with various groups, and data and analytics, and accountability, right? Because accountability is extremely important, because if we say something we want to do, then we have to follow through and do that. Otherwise, there are consequences. Because leadership always starts with people, and we can never forget that.
I love that. It's easy to talk about being people centered, but what you are describing shows intentionality behind that value. Can you share an example of how listening to community voices has changed your perspective?
Okay, another good question. I want to give a couple of examples, and also because this is all we're talking about community voices. Right. I have spoken to Indian community, and before I spoke to the Indian community, I had very less idea about how the incidents or the stories that's happening in India have an impact on them who lives in Folsom. Oh. I had not had that idea. But after speaking to several of the Indian community members, I discovered that what happens in India has a deep impact on their lives here as well. And so that is one way I'm looking at it and say, so I need to be able to show better empathy for the incidents that has, even though it's nothing to do with this Folsom, right. But it is the impact. There is a huge impact that is happening, whether it's a flood that happens in Chennai, or whether it is a terrorist attack that happened in Kashmir. But the Indian community does see it as they're directly impacted with that. And speaking with the Indian community, that's exactly what I'm realizing, is that it's not only Indian community, but all other community members, with different backgrounds. There is somewhere something happens outside the country does have an impact on their life and their emotional state and their mental health and so on. So now my perspective is that I always pay attention to their background, their culture, and and what's happening in their country as well. Because when I meet any of the Indians, I ask which state you're from and what's more important, what's happening there, so that I get more information as well.
Correct.
Now, this information will be helpful in developing the social awareness, which is part of the emotional intelligence, so that I become more socially aware of my constituents and my residents. And that way I can serve the needs of these particular residents better. The other uh, example I want to give is about is public safety and then and the community, for example. I have always watched the cops, drive by, and they are always, trying to handle a crime scene or trying to, get to a accident incident or accident zones and trying to help. But I always look, from the outside, but I never had a perspective from how does it feel to be a cop? How does it look to be a cop from inside the car, right? Because from the outside the car, I am always like, oh, these people are, they use a lot of force, and they are always giving people tickets, and they're very mean, and what if I'm just 2 miles above the speed limit, things like that. I am having those perspectives from outside, but my perspective changed when I actually sat inside the car and drove with the deputy, Sacramento County deputy, for 8 hours.
Oh.
Right. And because that is a different perspective, or from inside the car, from being outside the car. That's how I know. I felt like, I heard in many stories that the cops, they're part of the public service, and many, they leave home and they don't know whether they're going to go back home. Right. We have seen the civil unrest and all the crime that happens in this country, and by sitting inside the car and watching how a deputy sheriff functions and what kind of threats they see from inside, it gives me a totally different perspective on that.
Right.
So that gives me perspective that not only from outside the car but inside the car, and also made me believe more that we need to do as electeds in protecting the public safety personnel, because they are the ones who make me feel safe. Right? That's the important part. And the last example I want to give you with the time that we have is, as I saw the homes getting built in south side of 50, and I kind of had a feeling that maybe there is a division or thinking, at least among the people, that, oh, I belong to south side of the 50, you belong to north side of the 50. However, when I actually met somebody in Folsom Branch who is very influential, has been living there for some time, and this person confirmed that it is not just you're thinking, Jag, it is what it is.
It is what it is.
This is how people feel, right? This is how people feel in the south of 50, that they are contributing everything to the north of 50, right? So that perspective, I was just thinking about it, but I did not have it. But after speaking to someone, my perspectives have changed, that how they feel. And again, how is this going to impact me, or how is this going to benefit me, is by developing those social awareness, so that once I know what the issues are, then we can start working together with the residents in addressing those particular for issue. Another resident that I met in the last few weeks asked me a question that what different employment opportunities are available in Folsom. Because this person moved from out of state and works currently remote work. And based on the national economy, this person was concerned that if he ever loses a job, is there something that he can get an employment in the city? And I always thought that we are self-sufficient in the city of Folsom, and we have let's say, for example, Intel and Micron Technologies and other large employers. But after hearing the question from this gentleman, then I started to think, oh, wait a minute. So we probably need to do a better job in bringing more employers to Folsom. And otherwise, there are people like him or her, similar to the situation, are looking for ways to be locally employed in city of Folsom as well. So these are the different ways, of speaking with a community member, and also speaking to the experiencing the cop's life in a day has changed my completely perspectives on a lot of things that really happens in the city.
That's nice. And I think it really shows how important it is to stay open as a leader. As an emotional intelligence expert, can you tell how emotional intelligence help address complex citywide problems?
Sure. Emotional intelligence is one of the most underappreciated yet an essential tool in solving the complex citywide problems. Right. At its core of the emotional intelligence is about understanding people, their emotions, their motivations, their concerns, and using that insight to build trust, reduce conflict, and also drive very collaborative solutions. That's what emotional intelligence helps us. And specifically, what I can do using that skills is what I call listening beyond the words, right? So what I mean by that is that many problems in the city government, it stems from the residents feeling unheard or overlooked. Right. So there are a lot of examples that I've seen is that some parts of the residents feel that they have this issue and the city is not listening to that. Right. That's one part of it. But in the situations like that, the emotional intelligence allows me to listen deeply, right? And not just what's said, but also the emotions behind it, which is extremely important. So a lot of times these emotions drive their reactions, but it may be a simple problem, but they feel it's a very complex or a deeper problem that they want to do that. And how do I respond to these situations, whether with empathy and respect, which is going to determine how my residents are going to feel ultimately, right? Right. So what we really want to do is it's called listening is building a stronger public trust and more responsive policies decisions for the city. It's extremely important for all of the city council members is to earn the trust of their residents or the constituents. If they trust, then they will support their decision making as we go on. And also building what I call an inclusive team is going to be helpful in this particular situation, right? And a city can't be run by one person. Right. Okay. It has to be, like City of Folsom, so like 400 plus employees. And, it also has, commissions, there are also some boards, and also a lot of volunteers that run the particular city. So if an emotionally intelligent leader, then it just brings the best out of them if they're really emotionally intelligent. And also it creates what I call a psychological safety for the employees and also for the residences. And also it encourages the diverse voices to be heard as well. Because if I'm not emotionally intelligent and if I'm not showing that type of empathy, people may not want to come and disclose their issues, and they don't want to probably voice their opinion because they don't have any trust. Right. And they're like, why should I waste my time in going and talking about it when person doesn't want to be heard about, right? So the leadership is all about having that emotional intelligence skills and also leading in a way that it is smarter and also more inclusive in the decision-making process. So building inclusive team is going to be part of that as well. And the third thing is I call it the leading through conflicts, right? Because we're bound to have conflicts because we are human beings. And the city issues are often involves competing interests, right? We always talk about, business wants to do this and the environmentalists say, no, you can't do that, right? There's the trade-offs there. There's always a development versus preservation, right? There's always a budget and the priority. There's always going to be the conflicts that we see. And as a leader with very high emotional intelligence, it can, we can navigate these tensions, right? Right. Without, polarization. And also they pretty much seek a common ground and say, okay, what is the real issue here? Again, we know the emotions are high because of the interest groups, but we really need to look at what the issue is and ask better questions and also de-escalate the situation rather than dividing between business community and non-business community. Environmentalists are one group, and again, the business is another group. The people who for development is one group, and then people who are against development is another group. That's kind of makes it into divisions among the community. But rather, we want to ask the better questions to bring these communities together and see a common ground that we want to look at. The fourth approach I would take is essentially staying grounded during crisis, right? Because a lot of times when the real leader test is during crisis situation, when everything works fine, then anybody can do the job, right? Whether we have a budget shortfall or we have a wildfire season or we have a community unrest, we have protests and things going on, all the city has got infrastructure problems, and there are always going to be some real crisis situations, right? So any leader with a high level of emotional intelligence, they can help remain calm, thoughtful, and always people focused, so that they are not worried about their emotions and they know better manage their emotions, and also they understand their residents' emotions as well. High stakes situation. These are all very high stakes situation, and being steady it really matters. I think a leader who is really steady in those situations really matters for the positive outcome that we experience. And finally, I call it something called bridging the policy and the humanity side of things, right? Because we can make any policy, but it is as long as it applies to the humans, then we need to make sure that these policies are human centric as well. So city issues are not technical issues. They're personal issues that comes up. And the emotional intelligence as a leader, what it does is it ensures that those policies don't lose sight of the humans being affected with those policies, right? Because we always ask the question, right? How will this impact the policy or any policy that I'm voting on or enacting? How will this impact the families, the workers, or the seniors, or the kids in our neighborhoods, and which is going to be extremely important. So as someone who has practiced and coached emotional intelligence for over a decade, I bring not just technical skills, but a people-centered leadership, I call. And that's what Folsom needs to tackle today's challenges with both compassion and also a courage to take on some really transformative initiatives and decision-making for the people of Folsom.
Absolutely. Especially in city where the issues are complex and the people affected are diverse, that emotional insight can make all the difference. Coming to last question of the episode, what's your vision for creating a more inclusive and connected Folsom?
Okay, good question. My vision for a more inclusive and a connected Folsom is one where every resident, no matter their background, their age, their ability, or where they live in Folsom, I want them to feel seen, heard, and empowered to contribute to the city's future, right? And so how do I want to do that? Number one is creating spaces for every voice. And for example, I want to expand opportunities for community participation through neighborhood councils, listening sessions, outreach that reflects the full diversity of our city, which is extremely important. Also, we need to meet people where they are, not expect them to come to us. So there was a time that I'm going to sit in one place and let the people come to me with their questions or their issues. But I think the things have changed. Now I think I am ready to go to where they are. There's not even where the idea of meeting in the middle, right? You come halfway, I come halfway, we'll have conversation. I'm different leadership style. I'm going to come to your place. I'm not going to wait for you to come to my place, nor I'm going to ask you to come to the middle place, but I will come to your place. That's what helps us in creating this space for listening to every one of these voices, right? And I'm a very big proponent of equity. Equity in access is important. For example, if it's the parks or transit or housing or even a small business support that we need, we must ensure that all communities in Folsom have access to and the same opportunities as well. And we cannot create a city where half of the people have access and half the people don't have access to some particular facility. We want to make sure that everyone has access, and then there's some equity in that as well. And what does it really look like is basically addressing any barriers. That's what we want to look at, is addressing any barriers faced by working families, seniors, or communities of color. And that's what I call the equity in access. And most important thing for me is coming from a different country and making this my home is celebrating our cultures and then sharing the stories is extremely important. That's part of we as assimilation into the cultures. A connected city, always celebrates its people. Now, if the people are coming from different backgrounds and different cultures, we need to recognize that and we need to celebrate that as well. And when people see themselves reflected in the community through these cultural celebrations, they feel that they belong here. Otherwise, they don't feel like they belong in the city where they live. So it's a part of important thing. And safe and welcoming neighborhoods are extremely important to me, right? Because I am new to Folsom and I moved in 2017, and I also felt safe and also I felt welcoming as well. But I want to make sure that that continues. So when we talk about inclusion as part of my vision means, it also means safety and also ensuring that everyone, regardless of where they live in the city, they deserve clean streets, they deserve walkable areas, and then they have access to responsive city services, which is critical for the lifestyle that we enjoy here. Right? And also that's how we build the trust across the city as well. And finally, I want to bridge any divides with emotional intelligence. Okay. So as a leader, as rooted in emotional intelligence, but I will foster the conversations that bring people together, and even when they disagree. Right? We are okay to disagree, but we need to agree that we disagree, right? Because that is the key element of any of these efforts and as a leader. And also building connections is important. That means listening with respect and also finding common grounds and keeping people at the center of every decision making. Okay. So these are the things that really guides what I'm. So my goal in Folsom is where connection isn't just about technology, whether you're connected on Facebook or Instagram, but it's about relationships. It's about belonging, and also it's about shared purpose. Right? And that's the kind of city I want to help build.
That's an inspiring vision, Jack. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Look forward to more opportunities here.